In the final days of December 1943, Vice Admiral Robert Burnett found himself docked in Murmansk, deep within Soviet territory, aboard the HMS Belfast after successfully guiding the Arctic convoy JW-55A to its destination. As his fleet made ready to accompany the next convoy on its return voyage to Britain, a critical message arrived from the Admiralty in London. British intelligence had cracked German communications, uncovering that the formidable battleship Scharnhorst, flanked by 5 destroyers, had set sail from their base in Altafjord, Norway, their mission to ambush the outbound British convoy as it intersected with the returning one from Russia for the British Navy. This was the break they had long anticipated. The convoys had served their purpose, drawing out one of Nazi Germany's most lethal warships. The epic confrontation involving the Scharnhorst was entirely set in motion by the movement of a British convoy bound for Soviet Russia. Among the escorting cruisers, one vessel maintained an especially vigilant watch, on high alert for the elusive German battleship, and their caution paid off. The trap was sprung with precision. The clash erupted in the icy waters off North Cape, deep within the frozen expanse of the Arctic Circle. With the sinking of the Bismarck in 1941 and the crippling of the Tirpitz in September 1943, the Scharnhorst remained the last operational giant of Hitler's battleship fleet. For the British, taking her down was a strategic imperative. Eliminating the Scharnhorst would lift a looming shadow over Allied convoys, finally allowing them to sail without the constant dread of a sudden onslaught from this sea-bound predator. The Arctic convoys began in August 1941, just weeks after Nazi Germany launched its invasion of the Soviet Union. Recognizing the urgency of standing with its newfound Eastern ally, Britain initiated these dangerous missions as a show of unity. Over time, the convoys became a powerful symbol of Allied resolve in the Eastern Front, playing a vital role in sustaining the Soviet war effort. Yet each journey was a harrowing ordeal fraught with peril and bound by bitter, unforgiving conditions. HMS Belfast became part of the Arctic convoy operations in early 1943, stepping into a perilous role where danger came not only from the savage environment, but also from relentless enemy assaults. These missions were fraught with risks, posing a constant threat to both merchant vessels and Royal Navy warships alike. The deadly nature of the convoys was tragically underscored by the fate of HMS Edinburgh Belfast's sister ship. Vice Admiral Robert Burnett would ultimately prove to be the key figure behind the unfolding victory. In the final days of 1943, Burnett and HMS Belfast remained docked in Murmansk, preparing to escort a homebound convoy to Britain. When intelligence arrived, the Scharnhorst was on the move. The German High Command had dispatched the battleship with a clear mission to wreak havoc on 2 Allied convoys. The plan was brutal and strategic: break into the convoy, scatter its formation, and expose the merchant vessels to isolated, devastating attacks. But nature was not on Germany's side. Fierce storms, brutal cold, and treacherous seas plagued the region. The German admiral aboard Scharnhorst had serious misgivings about the mission, as did other high-ranking officers stationed along the Norwegian coast. Then, just before 9, HMS Belfast's radar picked up a signal Scharnhorst was a mere 30 miles away. The first contact had been made. The trap was closing in. In the dim light of Boxing Day morning, December 26th, HMS Belfast and the returning convoy from the Soviet Union were positioned in the freezing stretch of sea between Norway's North Cape and the desolate Bear Island. tasked with locating the elusive Scharnhorst. Belfast began its careful sweep through the dark Arctic waters. Then, at around 8:40, a flicker appeared on her radar, an unmistakable signal. The crew quickly realized they had made contact with their target. The hunt had become a battle. An hour later, at approximately 9:40, the cruisers of Force One moved in. HMS Norfolk engaged and struck a critical blow, damaging the Scharnhorst's main fire control radar and effectively blinding the battleship. In response, Scharnhorst veered northward, attempting to outflank Burnett's cruisers and loop back toward the convoy from a different angle. With Scharnhorst racing northward at high speed, Admiral Burnett faced the most pivotal decision of the operation. This was no ordinary tactical choice. It was a moment that would define the battle. Instead of ordering an immediate pursuit, he opted for a far more daring strategy to hold position and wait, calculating that the German battleship would eventually double back through a predictable route. Just after noon, the radar screens lit up once more. Scharnhorst had returned. Without hesitation, all three British cruisers surged into action, opening fire with renewed ferocity. The German battleship took more hits, but not without striking back. HMS Norfolk suffered serious damage in the exchange. Scharnhorst, now wounded, began a desperate retreat southward toward the safety of Norway. This time, Burnett did not let go. With radar superiority on his side, he maintained a relentless pursuit, shadowing his prey through the Arctic gloom, never out of sight, never out of reach. As the chase unfolded across the frigid Arctic seas, Scharnhorst and the British cruisers became locked in a relentless running battle, steadily driving the German battleship southward. One by one, however, HMS Norfolk and HMS Sheffield were forced to withdraw. Inside Belfast, the atmosphere was one of taut focus. Action stations aboard a warship were always intense. For the next 2 hours, the German battleship attempted to flee, still trying to outrun fate, but there was no escape. British guns rained down with deadly precision, hammering the Scharnhorst again and again as she bled steel into the frozen sea. The Royal Navy had seized the advantage, and this time, they would not let go. It was HMS Duke of York that delivered the decisive blow, slowing the fleeing Scharnhorst just enough to give the British destroyers their chance. In a display of sheer audacity and brilliance, these smaller, agile ships closed in at dangerously close range and launched their torpedoes with lethal precision. As the final stage of the battle unfolded, the Scharnhorst, battered by shell fire, bleeding steam, and crippled engines, began to falter. Her speed dropped, and with it, her chances of survival. It was then that the torpedo offensive began in earnest. Salvos came not just from the cruisers like HMS Belfast, but, more critically, from the British destroyers that darted through the darkness and struck at near point-blank range. Admiral Fraser moved in, and HMS Belfast fired star shells into the Arctic sky. The flares burst open, casting a stark white light that lit up the night and exposed the wounded German warship. The Duke of York unleashed her heavy artillery with unrelenting fury. After hours of relentless pursuit, after enduring the thunder of shells and the deadly bite of torpedoes launched by both British and Norwegian vessels, the mighty Scharnhorst was finally overwhelmed. She slipped beneath the freezing waters of the Barents Sea shortly after 7:30 p.m., ending one of the last great surface engagements of the Second World War. Out of a crew of nearly 2,000 aboard the Scharnhorst, Only 36 men survived. The human cost was staggering. For those serving on British warships like HMS Belfast, the loss struck a solemn chord. The age of the great battleship, the capital ship trading thunderous salvos across open waters, was drawing to a close. The dominance of these steel giants had already been challenged by the rise of aircraft, the silent threat of submarines, and the lethal precision of torpedoes. The sinking of the Scharnhorst marked not just a strategic victory, but the symbolic end of an era. It occupies a unique and poignant place in the chronicles of the Royal Navy, standing as a turning point in the evolution of naval warfare.